Before her first crossing on the Ghan, a chef was asked in her job interview whether she was good at Tetris. She thought it was a strange question. She understood it the moment she walked into the kitchen. The kitchen on the Ghan is 3 meters by 5, roughly the footprint of a large bathroom. And from that space, 2 to 3 chefs produce 3 full meal services a day for up to 220 passengers, plus meals for the rest of the crew. Breakfast starts before most of the train is awake. With eggs and bacon and fresh fruit prepared in a sequence the chefs have run enough times to execute, without much conscious thought. Lunch follows, and then dinner, which runs to 4 courses for platinum passengers and involves a level of organization that one chef described as playing Tetris, with every ingredient and every piece of equipment simultaneously. Every ingredient the kitchen will use for the entire crossing, from the first breakfast out of Adelaide to the last lunch before Darwin, was loaded before the train left the station. Once the train leaves, the next opportunity to add anything to the kitchen is in Darwin, approximately 2,979 kilometers and 54 hours away. Here is the thing almost nobody outside the railway industry thinks to ask about one of Australia's great train journeys. What does it actually take to run it? Not ride it. Run it. Cook for it. Clean for it. Convert every cabin twice a night for 2 nights running, and manage every problem that comes up when the nearest solution is somewhere a continent away. The answer involves a crew of around 23 people, a schedule measured in meal services rather than hours, and a question at the end of every crossing. What do we need to do differently next week? Here is where it starts. The Ghan runs once a week, operated by Journey Beyond, Adelaide to Darwin and back. The crew that boards in Adelaide stays with the train all the way to Darwin, spends a night there, and rides the return crossing back to Adelaide before taking 4 days off. The same chefs who cooked your first dinner are still in the kitchen when Darwin comes into view. There is no crew handover at Alice Springs, no fresh team boarding at the halfway point. What starts in Adelaide finishes in Darwin, with the same people, carrying the same knowledge of which passenger in cabin 7 takes their coffee black and which one has been pressing the call button at 2 a.m. for 2 nights running. The crew numbers around 23 on a typical crossing. Chefs, cabin attendants, and the technical staff responsible for keeping the train running. They live together for the duration. Meals are shared in the kitchen between services. The lounge car becomes their common room in the brief windows when it is not full of passengers. A chef who has done this run dozens of times knows which attendants prefer the early breakfast shift and which ones are still moving at midnight when the last passenger finally goes to bed. By the second night, the crew is operating less like a team assembled for a job and more like a small town that happens to be moving through the outback at 100 kilometers an hour. The chef's day starts before sunrise. Breakfast preparation is already underway. Eggs, bacon, fresh fruit, before most of the train stirs. This flows into lunch prep, which flows into dinner. Between each service, the crew eats together in the kitchen at whatever gap the schedule allows. The numbers behind what the kitchen produces on a single crossing are specific. Approximately 6,000 meals per journey, working out to something in the region of 5,480 eggs and more than 100 kilograms of bacon each week the train runs. 2 to 3 chefs handle all of it, including crew meals, for the full duration of the trip. By the time the first night falls and the last passenger has been seen to, the chef has been working for most of the day. The kitchen is the engine of the crossing in a way that goes beyond food. It sets the rhythm, marks the time, and is the place the crew returns to between everything else. She does it again tomorrow. But the job in the kitchen is only half of what keeps the train running. Every cabin on the Ghan converts twice a day. By day, a gold cabin is a sitting room. 2 seats facing a window, a fold-down table, enough space to read or watch the country go past. By night, the seats fold flat into berths, and the cabin becomes a bedroom. The hospitality staff do this for every occupied cabin, every evening, and reverse it every morning. For a full crossing, that means working through up to 220 cabins twice over 2 nights. It is physical work, repetitive, and precise, and it happens while the rest of the train is doing other things. While dinner is running in the restaurant car, while the lounge is filling up after the meal, while some passengers are already asleep in the berths that were chairs an hour ago. An attendant who has been on the train since Adelaide has, by the time the second night ends, made and unmade hundreds of beds, while simultaneously managing meal service, passenger requests, and the general upkeep of a corridor that happens to be moving. The attendant who makes up your cabin in the evening is the same person who served your wine at dinner and will bring coffee to your door in the morning. The work is continuous in a way that is easy to miss from the passenger side, where everything appears to arrive smoothly and on schedule. From the crew side, smooth is not a condition. It is a result of a lot of moving parts being managed at the same time by people who have done it enough times to stop thinking about the individual steps and start thinking about the whole crossing as a single continuous operation. The Ghan also carries a piano in one of the lounge cars. It has been part of the train for years. For the crew who work that car, it is simply there. One more feature of the rolling hotel they manage. Whether anyone plays it depends on who is aboard that week. The schedule runs on stops, not clocks. The Ghan makes 2 passenger stops on the Adelaide to Darwin crossing, and the crew does not refer to them by time. They refer to them by where they fall in the meal schedule, pre-lunch, post-dinner. The clock tells you when the train arrives. The kitchen tells you what kind of stop it is. Alice Springs comes in the morning of the second day. Passengers step off for the day. Excursions into town, optional scenic flights toward Uluru, a few hours to stretch before the train departs again in the early evening. For the crew, Alice Springs is one of the more complicated parts of the crossing. Passengers are moving in multiple directions at once. The kitchen is transitioning between lunch and dinner preparation, and the cabin staff are servicing rooms in between arrivals and departures. The crew does not step off for the excursions. They stay with the train, working through the stop the same way they work through everything else. The chef uses the time to check what the kitchen has left and calculate how it maps to the meals still ahead. One more dinner tonight, a full breakfast tomorrow, lunch approaching Katherine, then the final run to Darwin. The inventory that looked generous in Adelaide has been working hard for 2 days. Katherine follows the next morning, a shorter stop, built around the Nitmiluk Gorge excursions. Passengers leave by bus or helicopter while the train waits. The kitchen keeps moving. Katherine is the last stop before Darwin, and experienced crew treat it as the final checkpoint before the finish line. For the chef, it is also when the kitchen inventory tells its final story. Whatever is left in storage after 2 full days of service is what remains for the last meals. A kitchen stocked precisely for the crossing arrives at Katherine with exactly what it needs. Not because the planning was conservative, but because someone did the arithmetic correctly in Adelaide and held to it across every service since. An inventory that runs short in Katherine has no remedy. Getting it right is the goal, every time, on a train that runs this route once a week. Darwin arrives in the early evening of that same day. The crossing is done. If you are finding this useful, hit subscribe. We cover stories like this every week. The train leaves Adelaide in the early afternoon, around midday to mid-afternoon, depending on the schedule. The first hours are in daylight, with lunch already running as the city gives way to the drier country to the north. By the time darkness comes, the train is deep into South Australia's interior, covering ground that most passengers sleep through. The cabin staff are up, making beds. The chef is in the kitchen, managing the late requests that always come after dinner. The passenger who wants a specific wine still in storage. The one who only decided they were hungry after the restaurant closed. These are the hours that don't show up in the schedule and that experienced crew factor in without needing to be told. The first night on the Ghan is also the longest uninterrupted stretch of the crossing. No stops between Adelaide's outer reaches and Alice Springs. Just track and darkness, and the crew working through the hours while the train covers the distance. The following morning brings Alice Springs. Then, the long afternoon and evening stop, the early departure, the second night running north. By now the crew has found its rhythm. who handles the 3 a.m. call button, who starts a breakfast, who keeps the lounge car going for the passengers who cannot sleep. The crossing has its own internal logic by this point, a shared knowledge about how things work on this particular train with this particular group of passengers, built over 2 days of working in close quarters. The chef knows that the passengers who were most enthusiastic about the 4-course dinner on the first night are the ones most likely to want something lighter on the second. She has already adjusted. The attendant who noticed the couple in cabin 12 preferred their curtains left half open has been leaving them that way without being asked. Darwin in the early evening. The passengers step off. The crew follows an hour or two later after the train has been secured and the kitchen closed down. They have a night in Darwin, a single night in a hotel before the return crossing begins the following morning. For the chef, the Darwin night is partly rest and partly logistics. What needs to be reloaded? What ran short on the northbound crossing? What can be adjusted for the return menu? The planning for the next crossing starts before the plates from the last service have been washed. The chef who was asked about Tetris in her interview has done this enough times to run the inventory in her head while the train is still moving, before Darwin comes into view. By the time the crew steps off the platform, she already knows what the kitchen needs for the morning. The Ghan has been making this crossing since August 4th, 1929. The name comes from the Afghan cameleers, the camel drivers from Afghanistan and the Indian subcontinent, who moved supplies through Australia's interior in the decades before the railway existed, proving that the route between the south coast and the far north was crossable at all. The original narrow-gauge line was notoriously unreliable, prone to flooding in the desert basins it crossed and sometimes marooned for weeks at a time. A new standard gauge line, completed in stages and opened in full in 2004, replaced it entirely. The track went in straighter, and the bridges went in more reliably. But the line between Adelaide and Darwin still runs where it runs because people on camels proved, more than a century ago, that it was worth building. The Indian Pacific, which this channel covered in an earlier video, runs east to west, Sydney to Perth, across the Nullarbor, and its 478 kilometers of track without a curve. The Ghan runs north to south, through the Red Centre, through Alice Springs, through the tropical approaches to Darwin. Both trains are operated by Journey Beyond, carry passengers in the same class of cabins, and take the better part of 3 days to complete their crossings. The difference is what the crew crosses. The Indian Pacific crew crosses the Nullarbor, flat and straight and vast, where the chef packed earplugs in his chest pocket because the track runs rough and the straight line through empty country goes on long enough to stop feeling like distance. The Ghan crew crosses the center of a continent that changes character across 2,979 kilometers, from the temperate south to the desert interior to the tropical north. The chef who was asked about Tetris in her interview has seen all of it once a week for however many crossings she has made. She still checks the kitchen inventory in Alice Springs. Darwin is always closer than it looks. Subscribe for more engineering stories that reveal the logic beneath the surface.